everyone, I'm Celine from Blue Calla Patterns and welcome to video 2 for the Meadowsweet Mini Crossbody Bag. In this video we're going to be doing assembly of our exterior and our lining panel so that we can then be ready to attach them to our assembled gusset, which we will do in the next video. So that means we're going to be sewing together this panel right here. And then we're also going to assemble these two lining panels and their slip pockets. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to need your 9.5 inch long zippers. Now I am going to be making the detachable zipper pouch as well in this video. So the zipper preparation for both zipper pockets, the zipper pouch and the attached zipper pocket, they're both the same, so I'm actually going to do both of them at the same time in this video. So what you'll need to do first is determine what is the closed end of your zipper. So if you look at your slider, there's this straight edge here, and then there's the rounded end here. So where the straight edge is, that's going to be the closed end of your zipper. So if your edges are crooked, just make sure that you cut them nice and straight and that you also heat seal them with a flame. And then you're going to need your fabric glue. And you'll also want some clips. So take your zipper tabs and apply a thin layer of glue all over on the wrong side. Try to glue. And then fold them in half with the closed end of the zipper in between. So the zipper tabs are a bit wider than your zipper tape. That's okay. That we'll trim that later. It's just wider so that it allows us to not have to be so precise. We have more to work with and then we can trim later. Okay, so then you just use the clips and we're going to allow that to dry completely before we sew it on. Make sure the end of your zipper is all the way at the end inside the fold. And then make sure that the raw edges here are lined up perfectly. So you want these to be lined up. Okay, so we're going to give these a few minutes to dry. I'm going to use a matching thread. I don't really like contrasting thread, so I'm going to use matching thread. And I'm going to sew first along the raw edges here with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then a second time here along the folded edge, again with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, the zipper tab is attached and I'll just trim a bit so that it is equal to the width of the zipper tape. So I'm going to set one aside and I'm just going to show you the next steps with one of the zippers. So next what we're going to do is we are going to measure 8.5 inches from the edge here of the zipper tab. Okay, so 8.5 inches from the end of the zipper tab, and I'm trying to use a white pencil so that the markings show. and you're going to mark that on both sides of the zipper tape. Okay, so hopefully you can see those white marks. Now, there's so many ways to do this next part. You can use whichever method that you prefer. So normally what I do is at the mark, I pinch the zipper tape, and then I bring that pinch up to the coil, and then I base that in place here along the edge just to hold that in place, and then I do that on both sides. But another thing you can do is at that mark, you fold your zipper tape like this, and then you sew at a 45-degree angle from the edge up to the top corner here. It can get a little bit tricky with the coil, and then what will happen is you're going to have a tiny little seam here. So you can use whichever method that you prefer. Whether you like it no seam or with a seam. I personally do the option without a seam. So I'm just going to, I'm actually going to take it over to the machine and do it at the machine, because there's no point clipping or pinning this step. I just make sure that my marks are visible, and I see this one's disappearing. And I do the fold method so that I don't have a seam, but either way is fine. So how I do it, make sure your pull's out of the way, and then I put my needle in the down position. That way there nothing is moving around, and then I do the pinch and bring that pinch up to the coil, and then I just use my seam ripper to hold it in place. And then backstitch a couple of times, and then one side is done. Now, what's important here is that the fold is at exactly the same location on both sides. So if you close your zipper, you want this to be a fairly straight edge here at the top. And then you're going to do the same thing with the second zipper. Okay, so you'll need one of the prepared zippers, and then you want the exterior zipper pocket lower piece. You'll also want both zipper pocket lower lining pieces. And then you're also going to need the zipper pocket upper exterior piece. Okay, so set that aside. And for now, you're going to take one of the zipper pocket lower pieces, the lining pieces, and along the top edge, at the top corners, you're going to make a mark 3/4 of an inch in. Okay, so along the top edge, you measure in from one top corner 3/4 of an inch, and you make a little mark. And you do the same on the other side. And then you want to place that zipper in between these marks. Now, which direction you want your zipper to open, that's up to you. I like to have the opening of my zipper to the right in this step. And then I'm just going to put this quickly to the lining piece. And then we are going to base the zipper to the lining piece, just with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. It's just to hold it in place on the lining for now. Now it's important to make sure that your zipper stays in between those marks. Okay, so the zipper is basted to one of your lining pieces. Now you're going to take the exterior piece And you're going to place it so that the lining and the exterior are right sides together. And then just make sure that they're lined up here at the top. So you want those corners to be matched up. And then use clips to hold that in place. Now throughout this pattern I'm going to be using clips, not pins, because holes are permanent in the materials that I'm using. Not so much visible in waterproof canvas, but definitely can be visible in cork or vinyl or something like that. Okay, and now we're going to sew all along the top edge here, this time with 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're going to make sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, the layers are sewn together, and now we are going to flip these two pieces so they are wrong sides together. Now, one thing that is going to be a little different throughout this entire video is that we're using materials that cannot be pressed, and so we have to find other ways to flatten seams before top stitching. So in this case, I like to top stitch, making sure that these bottom edges are aligned. And now if you have like one of those seam rollers, now would be the great time to use it. I don't have one. So I just kind of finger press a little bit. And then when I am sewing, I finger press. Sorry, when I'm top stitching, I finger press, but I also kind of pull the layers away from the zipper, and that does a fairly decent job. So now we're going to top stitch along the bottom edge here, all along the entire width. Okay, now we're going to take the remaining zipper pocket lower lining piece, and again we're going to make those marks 3/4 of an inch from each top corner. And then we'll take off these clips now. We don't need them anymore. And now we're going to take these layers here. We're placing the zipper in between those marks again. And then at the same time, we make sure that this is lined up here at the edges. And then again, we're doing a quick little basting stitch to base that zipper to the lining piece. And we're just doing 1/8 of an inch seam allowance in this step. Like this, okay? Just 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, quick basting stitch along the zipper. Okay, that's what this looks like now. So now you're going to need your zipper pocket upper piece. You're going to turn it so you're looking at the wrong side, and you want that straight edge along the top. And you're just going to lay this along the top edge, clip it in place. You just want to make sure that these corners here at each end line up. We're going to sew along the top here, 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now make sure that when you get to your zipper pull that you stop and you
move it out of the way, because otherwise you're going to have your line of stitching will maybe be a little crooked if you don't.
Okay, now this is attached, and we're not going to top stitch the way we normally would. So what you're going to do first is you're going to have this positioned towards the top, and then the top two layers here also towards the top. So the only thing that should be facing down is the bottom zipper pocket lower lining piece. That is the only one. And then the seam allowance you also want pointing downwards. And then we're going to top stitch here along the bottom edge of the zipper, and you're only going to be top stitching this bottom lining piece within the seam allowance.
Okay, so seam allowance is pointing this way, and then this one lining piece is pointing this way. And just make sure that while you're top stitching, use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and make sure that you're tugging on this a little bit so that it's nice and away from the zipper.
Okay, so that's what this looks like at this point. And then you're going to take these top two layers. This is going to stay pointing upwards, but you're going to take these two pieces, so the zipper pocket lower lining and exterior pieces, and we're going to line up these bottom rounded corners. Make sure that also the edges here are all lined up nice and straight. And you're going to use a clip to hold that in place. And you're going to do the same along this corner. So this is going to force your zipper to kind of fold in half, and the coil should be pointing upwards. Now, if you were precise with your seam allowances, the top edge here should also meet the seam right here, where your lining piece at the bottom meets the zipper pocket upper piece. Okay, so we're just going to use clips to hold that all in place. Like this. Okay, so now that we have all of this clipped together, we are going to just baste all the layers together along the bottom here. We don't have to worry about the top here. We're just going to baste this area here. So you're going to baste with the longer stitch length, and you're going to use 1/4 or 1/8 seam allowance. It doesn't matter. I do like to do it starting at the bottom and then go up this side, and then I'll flip it over, and I'll start at the bottom again, and I'll go up this side. But if you want to just do it all in one go, that's fine. I just find there's less crookedness if I do it starting from the center and going up both sides.
Your waterproof canvas has a really rubbery wrong side, you may want to use a walking foot just so that the foot slides nicely over the rubberiness of the waterproof canvas.
Okay, and then we have the first exterior panel ready. This one here, because there's no pocket and the interfacing's already been done, this panel is also ready for final assembly. So we're just going to set the two of these aside, and now we're going to work on our lining panels and slip pockets. Now, I know this should be in the first video, but I finally decided on a fabric to use for my slip pockets. So what I've done is there's two layers here that are wrong sides together, and I'm just folding them like this in half. So this is the folded edge. And then remember when I said that the pocket line is your fold line, so you're going to place that at the fold. Then you're going to cut out the 2 pockets at once. Okay, so this is what you should have, 2 slip pocket pieces that look like this. And then you need to have the matching woven interfacing. Now, once your slip pocket pieces are prepared, this is what they should look like. And we need to fold both of them in half, wrong sides together. Now make sure when you're folding them in half that it's this size here at the end. And then just press that top edge. So this is the only time in this whole bag when we will use an iron. And do the same thing for the second one. And then we're going to go over to the machine and we're just going to top stitch the top folded edge here of both pocket pieces. Now you're going to need your 2 main body lining pieces. And you're going to place a slip pocket on each one and use clips to hold it in place. Okay, do the same for the second one. And then we're just going to base these in place all the way around. Okay, so basting all the way around these 3 sides with 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that's what they look like now. Now you're going to use a fabric pen. You're going to fold them in half like this. Actually, let's trim. So you see how there's a bit of pocket sticking out? I'm just going to trim them so they're even with the lining piece first. We would need to do that in a later step anyways, before binding, but because I want my pockets to be split evenly, I'm going to do it now. Okay, that looks good. So we're folding them in half, wrong sides together. And then you're marking the center just on the top and the bottom edge of the pocket. You could just do a little dot like this. I'm going to do it for the other one as well. And then we're going to sew from this bottom mark all the way to the top mark. And when you get to the top edge here, you're going to backstitch a couple of times just to make sure you reinforce the pocket openings. You don't want the stitches to come undone and then you no longer have 2 separate pockets. So I'm going to do the same for this one. Okay, now I'm going to go and sew in the middle here just to divide them into 2 separate slip pockets per panel. Now we're going to take one of these completed lining panels. We're going to flip it wrong side up. Then you're going to take the remaining main body interfacing piece and we're going to glue it to the wrong side. Again, I'm using my Fabri-Tac. And apply a thin bead of glue all over on the wrong side, well, on one side of the main body interfacing. Now make sure that it is nicely centered. This, so you should have half an inch of space all the way around. Okay, so now you're going to get those exterior pieces that you've finished assembling and that other lining piece. So because we're doing a binding finish, we're going to put these layers wrong sides together. Now normally I would let this glue dry a little bit longer, but I want to just go ahead and show you how to finish it. So if you'll remember, one of the exterior pieces had a body firm interfacing, main body interfacing glued to the wrong side. So that one we want to pair with the lining piece that does not have one. And you're going to place them wrong sides together like this. Okay, there's your exterior, there's your lining. Now make sure if your print is directional that you pay attention to that. I don't know that this one is directional, but I think I like how it looks this way better. Because this is going to be the top edge, obviously, where the pocket openings are. So you just line those up and clip them together. Now make sure that they're nice and flat. Yes. Okay, that looks all right. And then the lining piece that has the main body interfacing, you're going to pair that with that panel that has the pocket. And again, make sure that the right side, make sure that the top is in the same position. So we know that this is the top and this is the top because our pockets open this way. And again, we're just lining those up and clipping together. Now don't worry too much if there's a little bit of unevenness. We're going to be trimming these once we've basted them together. So don't worry about that too much. Just do your best to match them up as well as you can. Good thing I checked because I'm going to put my zipper pull inside so I don't accidentally hit it with my needle in this next step. Okay, so now I'm going to take both of these over to the machine and I'm just going to do a quick basting stitch all the way around the two of them. You could use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, 1/4 inch. It really doesn't matter at this point. Okay, so we now have the two assembled body panels, and they are ready to attach to our gusset. In the next video, we're going to assemble our gusset and attach it to these two panels.